Oh, my.
Pete, yes.
Pete, everybody in the universe, and especially Brian McLaren, say that you and I should know each other.
Okay.
Are shocked and awed that we don't know each other. Are amazed that
Do I
we
owe you
haven't.
money or something?
You don't owe me money,
That's good,
but they
okay.
think we should be talking
connect, we
theology.
click, yeah.
That it's going to be like that.
I love talking theology with you.
I
That'd be
love
great.
it. Awesome. So Pete Enns.
Yeah.
What kind of last name is Enns?
Enns is actually a Mennonite name. My father was born in Russia, but he was German. It's weird. See, German Mennonites came to Russia in the 19th century under Tsar Catherine the Great.
Wow.
And then they got booted out by the communists. So
Okay.
my father was a part of the getting booted out stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
Is he a
yeah.
clergy?
No,
Okay.
just Mennonite. He was a
Okay.
farmer, and but then he came over on the boat after the war.
Okay.
And met my mother on the boat. This is right out of Central Casting.
I
something
love
like
it.
this,
Met
yeah.
the mother on the boat.
Met the mother on the boat. They were married a couple years later, and here I am,
Oh, that's awesome.
ruining people's lives one book at a time.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you're ruining lives one book at a time. So does your father's Mennonite life show up in your theology, your work?
You know, I didn't know what a Mennonite was until I was in college.
Yeah.
I grew up in New Jersey. There
Yeah.
are Italians. There are no Mennonites. Yeah,
That's right.
I didn't know anything about that.
Right.
But more, you know, as I've gotten older, you know, and I've thought about some of this stuff. There's a lot of Mennonite theology that I find there's wisdom there too.
Yeah.
So, but I have friends. I mean, this sounds horrible. I have good friends who are Mennonite.
Some
right?
of my best friends.
So actually, Jared Bias, who does the podcast with me, he goes to a Mennonite church.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I've spoken there. It's a beautiful church. So, you know, and you know, the social justice and pushing boundaries on
Yeah.
issues and making
And
people think about
peacemaking.
politics, peacemaking, all
Right.
that sort of stuff, right?
Pacifism?
Right.
When I was a consultant for the Alban Institute, I had Mennonite clients. And it was
All right.
so beautiful to go to Pennsylvania and to go to these spaces
Yeah.
and talk about conflict and peacemaking and all of
Right.
that kind of thing. It's amazing.
Right. Yeah.
Speaking of conflict and peacemaking,
Yeah,
hot mess going on in America right now.
I've heard.
In the name of religion.
Yeah.
What's going on, Pete, with the conflation of white supremacy, hegemony, and Christianity?
Yeah.
You're white. I don't feel you conflating. What's going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I've learned to not conflate because of experiences in my life, I don't know, and I didn't have certain influences, but, I mean, to explain that, that's like 10 doctoral dissertations.
Okay,
I
so
think
but
it's
we
such
have
a
10 minutes.
mess.
Yeah.
Well, it's more than I know, but
Yeah.
I mean, what I've sort of seen is the polarization, of course,
Yeah.
of thinking and people in power. See, people in power have always used religion to buttress what they
That's
do.
right. Of course.
And
right.
that goes way back, like thousands of years.
People in power created
Right.
religious doctrine.
Right.
To-
Or definitely created it.
Right.
I don't think America created Christianity, but
Right.
it has used it very effectively at
Right.
times to, and biblical Christianity to say,
Right.
well, listen, in the Bible you've got all sorts of these great examples of God's people going into other lands and taking their stuff and killing their people.
So why not us?
So we can do that too, and hence you have, you know, in my part of the country where I live in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, places like that,
Yeah.
you have towns called New Canaan.
Yes.
Right,
That's right,
Bethlehem.
Bethlehem.
You give them Christian names
Right.
because or biblical names because you're reproducing a biblical story in a new
Right.
land, and so you kill people and take their land away.
And the story is chosenness, right?
Yeah.
The chosenness narrative. God wants me to have the land. I'm promised the land.
Right.
I can take the land.
Right.
I can discover the land, and it can be mine.
Right, and the people there now are not consequential. They're
Right.
they're less than. They don't deserve to be there because we're the chosen people, and we can take their stuff. Right, and that's part of the American, you know, narrative. We know that, and not every American thinks that way. Not every American Christian thinks that way. Not
Right.
every white person thinks that way.
Of
But
course.
it's deeply ingrained,
deep-
and it can be called upon very quickly.
Right.
And if you're the right person who knows how to galvanize that
Right.
kind of xenophobia, that kind of fear, and it's sort of out of control. You know,
It
it's
feels like that.
frighteningly out of control. And I would like to see Christians not be that polarizing voice, but try to be more of a peaceful voice, and to give a vision for Christianity that's not sort of anchored down to these corrupt ideologies that are very not Christian.
So I'm often asked to define
Yeah.
Christian.
Oh, God.
And I'm going to just ask you, if you were teaching a class, and you do, what would you say to the non-Christian,
Yeah.
Pete, who's looking at what's happening in America and thinking, whatever, what is that? What is Christian? What is Christian to you that's helpful to the healing of our nation?
Right. I mean, first of all, the term is the problem, you know. And I guess I use it probably just because it's an easy way to label, but I always have the chance to define that over time
Right.
with people.
Yeah.
But being Christian means following Jesus
Right.
and allowing your life to conform to that model that Jesus had, which I think is also the larger biblical model. I think
Right.
the model of the prophets in the
Right.
Old Testament.
Right.
Sure, there are parts of the Bible that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
But people have known that for a long time.
Right.
Jews have known that for
Yep.
a long time.
Jews get
Christians,
that,
they
argue
get that.
about it.
Christians get that,
Yeah.
and that's fine.
That's right.
But the basic idea is one that is clear and it's simple, and it's very, very difficult to actually enflesh in oneself,
Yeah.
which is death to oneself and
Yeah.
life for other people,
Right.
and forgetting about yourself. You're not central. You're not seeking power.
Right.
Right.
There's
You're seeking
something
service.
about leaving ego behind, right? Leaving the strong I, the strong self behind. Maybe I'm thinking about Zulu people. This spirit of Ubuntu. I am because we are.
Yeah.
I am a person because
Right.
we are a people. I'm tied up in your liberation.
Right.
That feels to me like a deeply Jesus-y concept.
It is, but it's not an American concept,
right.
Because it's not. We do think in terms of the individual, and
Yeah.
it doesn't take a village. It doesn't take others. You're self-sufficient.
That's right.
I live in a neighborhood which probably 50 years ago would have been block parties and things like that, but now we're just these little cells that live there, and I'm as complicit as anybody, you know. But there's the we-ness is not there on a very practical level,
Right.
and certainly on a bigger level, like a national level. Forget it. It's not, unless it's the we-ness of those who are afraid of losing power.
Right.
Let's say and
All
want
of
to keep
us
it.
who want to keep our power. That's a pretty strong we.
Right. That is a very strong way.
Yeah.
Right. And I think President Trump was able to tap into that very effectively.
So let's say you're the campaign manager for the candidate of your choice, the one who's going to win. What's your advice to that candidate, Pete, about how to tap into the goodness of faith, the goodness of people of faith? What would they do?
I would not let others create the narrative. I would not buy into that. I would not contend with it and say and sort of be belligerent and fight against that. I would
Right.
more model something completely different,
Right.
which is a faith that is rooted in thinking of the good of the other,
Yeah.
and not simply of the self. Where empire is never the goal of faith.
Right.
It's actually that which has to be critiqued.
Right. It has to be disrupted,
It has to be
dismantled.
disrupted, dismantled, critiqued,
Yeah.
calling into account the powers that be, right? And to see a government that would really embrace that and understand it would be a beautiful thing. I'm not gonna bet that's gonna happen next year.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's the vision I would want to put in front of someone, to think of that, and to realize that there are people of faith who are not belligerent. They're not either or. They're not black and white polarizing people.
Right.
They're in the middle, and there are so many. In the same way that Trump may have tapped into the hard right that's out there,
Right.
there are so many people who don't want that.
Right.
They want something more peaceful, more in the middle, and just speak that truth.
Right. Speak.
Without worrying about whether you're going to win or not.
Right. That's right.
And just say it.
Describe
Yeah.
a vision of this preferred reality,
Yeah.
where it's shalom. It's
Yeah.
It's
Right.
everybody has enough.
People have enough.
Yes.
People can get medication that they need without, having to sell drugs to get those medications. People can get the care that they need, the food that they need. I mean, there's no reason for that not to happen, other than greed, other than money.
Amen. That's right.
And the thing is, we all like our money, and it's hard for me to criticize people. Because I have money. I'm not rich, but I have money.
Yeah.
I have more money than some people have.
Right. Sure.
I have more than I need, probably.
Yeah.
And I want to sort of point that finger back to myself too, not
Right.
just to the bad people
No, I
out there,
appreciate
but
that.
all of us.
All of
thinking,
us.
Yeah, thinking
All
in
of
terms
us.
of what's
Yeah.
genuine, what's authentic faith. What does it look like?
Right.
It's not complicated.
No,
It's so hard to do.
it's not complicated and it's hard. I love that.
It's so hard to do.
Keep
Yeah.
writing the beautiful books that you're writing.
Oh,
Keep
thank you.
teaching your students.
Yeah.
Keep changing the world one little bit at a time.
I'll do my best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.